When we think of empire, we think of spectacle, marching legions, roaring crowds, towering monuments. But some empires whisper, and when they do, they endure. This is the story of Rome, not as battlefield or myth, but as machine. A system so quiet, so familiar, it became invisible. Through laws etched in bronze, censuses that ranked souls, and rituals that blurred obedience with belief, Rome built a world where control didn't shout. It simply existed. In this episode, we explore how bureaucracy became sacred, how classification became destiny, and how silence became the loudest legacy of all. When we picture power, we picture noise, speeches, spectacle, legions. But some power whispers, and when it does, it lasts longer. Because the most effective system isn't the one that dominates. It's the one that feels too natural to notice. This is the story of Rome, not as battlefield or circus, but as silent system, designed to outlive its makers, written into scrolls, and carried in minds. Rome's gods faded, its generals died, its buildings crumbled, but its laws kept marching. The 12 tables, etched into bronze in the 5th century BCE, laid the foundation. They were displayed in the Forum Public, permanent and performative. Over time, imperial edicts, senatorial decrees, and legal innovations followed. Law wasn't just to punish, it was to shape the Roman world. The Lex Julia criminalized adultery, not just to protect marriage, but to reinforce elite morality. The Lex Cornelia punished corruption and defined who could accuse whom. Sumptuary laws regulated clothing, feasts, and funerals, because status had to be seen to be believed. Law didn't just record the empire, it became the empire. Romans followed rules not always because they agreed, but because they'd never known anything else. Today, we walk through codes. Click, I agree. Pay fines. Rarely asking where these rules came from. The legal machinery continues. Quiet, complex, familiar. And what feels familiar rarely gets questioned. Rome's legions enforced borders, but its laws enforced meaning. And meaning, once etched into custom, taught in schools, inscribed in stone, often outlives those who wrote it. So when you navigate today's rules, filing taxes, clicking, I agree, walking your city's designed spaces, it's worth asking not out of cynicism, but curiosity, who shaped these systems? And how much of that design do we still carry forward, quietly, confidently, every day? These rituals feel mundane, but they are rehearsals, quiet performances of belonging. Each checkbox, each cue, each form filled is a gesture of participation, not in a democracy of ideas, but in a choreography of compliance. We rarely notice the stage, but we play our part. So did the Romans. Every 5 years, citizens lined up for the census, declaring their property, their family, their place in the order. It ended with a sacred ritual, the lustrum, a mass purification led by the censors. A bureaucratic act wrapped in ceremony. Compliance became identity, and the more seamless the performance, the less they questioned the script. Every 5 years, the Roman census didn't just count people, it ranked them. You were measured by land, lineage, and marriage, then placed accordingly. The census determined your voting power, your military role, your tax burden. Rome's legal system divided humanity, citizens, Latins, provincials, freedmen, foreigners, slaves. The empire ran not just on roads and coins, but classification. Citizenship was sometimes a reward, sometimes a trap, and sometimes a tool for taxes, for service, for control. In 222 CE, Emperor Caracalla granted citizenship to all free men in the empire. But it wasn't generosity, it was reach. More citizens meant more taxable bodies, more legal obligations, more visibility. To be visible was to be governable. Modern echoes include ID cards, border controls, immigration status, credit scoring. The labels may differ, but the principle persists. Control doesn't always restrict. Sometimes it just defines what you're allowed to be. Rome's legal categories weren't just descriptive, they were prescriptive. Systems define people not only to understand them, but to use them efficiently. And when identity is optimized for power, dissent gets sorted before it speaks. Behind the monuments was something colder: files, forms, ledgers. The cursus publicus moved mail across continents. Tax records piled up. Grain allotments were tracked down to the modius. The empire ran not on charisma, but on clerks and replication. Governors changed, emperors fell. But the paperwork didn't stop. Provinces were templates, cities mirrored Rome, posts got filled, scrolls got copied. Quotas met. Bureaucracy was boring, and that's what made it eternal. There are modern echoes, government portals, AI-moderated appeals, flagged emails, denied forms. Power that doesn't break down, just slows down until you give up. Rome's greatest legacy may not be its laws, battles, or myths, but the machine that ran them. A self-sustaining logic, cool and impersonal, where decisions were made without attention, and compliance became routine. This logic didn't need charisma. It needed repetition. Scrolls copied by hand. Edicts passed from governor to governor. Each replication was a renewal of power, of order, of belief. So it was with the Lex Regia. A decree that transferred all authority to the emperor, replicated across the empire, carved into stone and bronze. Not debated, just repeated. Citizens saw the same words, the same symbols, again and again, and like a ritual, the repetition became sacred, not because it was inspired, but because it endured. Rome didn't always need punishment. It just needed people to believe it was watching. Oaths to the emperor, loyalty rituals, imperial cults where performance mattered more than faith. Obedience wasn't enforced, it was acted out. Some citizens became informers, delatores reporting neighbors for status or revenge. A whisper could become a trial, a rumor, a sentence. The fear wasn't just of state power, it was of each other. Modern echoes never end: phone metadata, tipping platforms, behavior-based ads, digital shaming. Scene, receipts. We don't always obey because of rules. We obey because we know someone, somewhere, might be watching. And the rest, we do to each other. By its end, Rome didn't need force everywhere. Its systems lived in behavior, in habit, in silence. The genius of the Roman machine wasn't dominance. It was internalization. When the citizen becomes the enforcer, empire no longer needs to shout. It just needs to wait. Rome's genius wasn't just in its roads or its rhetoric. It was in the quiet systems that taught people how to behave, without ever needing to ask why. But systems alone don't stir the heart. To truly endure, an empire must inspire sacrifice. In our next episode, we explore how Rome invented patriotism, not through loyalty alone, but through story. Episode 5: The Invention of Patriotism. How Rome turned sacrifice into story. Because when dying for something becomes beautiful, the system doesn't just survive, it becomes sacred.